Hi, my name is Caitlin. I am from Abington, Pennsylvania, and I am 16 years old. I live with my mom and my stepdad, who is pretty much more of a dad to me than my real dad is. Anyways, so I wanted to talk about being a teenager with bipolar, because a lot of people just look at it as like, oh, they're crazy because they can't control their moods, but it's not that at all. And I wish people would like really take the time to understand that it's a lot more than just mood swings and being angry and then sad and then happy, because it's not that at all. So I'm here to explain it and kind of give people a better understanding. So I found out I was bipolar in 2013 in 8th grade. I had to go to this place called Horsham Clinic, and they were like, oh, you know, like, you just take her to therapy, they'll evaluate her, see what's going on. Because up until that point, they just thought, like, moody teenager, you know, she's just a teenager doing teenage things. And then I got evaluated, and they were like, oh yeah, she has like all this stuff wrong with her. And, you know, it got like really real at that point. Like, then I realized I'm a teenager who also has ODD, bipolar, they say I have PTSD, but I'm not sure about that. ADHD, which I'm also not sure about, maybe. And some other things that I'm not sure about. The main one is like bipolar. I'm medicated for bipolar, and right now I just got medication for my ADHD. I didn't really think much about it because, you know, like, I never really talk about it, but I feel like it's kind of important to talk about because nobody really gives it much thought. Like, people just kind of like live their life thinking that like we're all crazy, bipolars are crazy, and that they all have problems and they can't control themselves. But like I said, it's not that, and I wish people would understand that it's not that. So, you know, when I first found out, there would be times like where I would really wish I was like everybody else, and like I still wish I was like everybody else, you know, like I walk through the hallways and like think about like all the people with like normal lives and how they have nothing wrong with them. But, you know, here I am being medicated, nobody knowing about it except for my close friends, and, you know, people obviously don't know that I am, but I talk about it to people. Like, if people find out that I have bipolar, you know, like, I'll talk about it if they ask about it, and, you know, like, I'll make fun of myself sometimes about it, like, you know, like, I beat other people to the joke, and I don't think it's a problem like a lot of people think it is. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a teenage girl trying to figure out how to control all my mood swings. Everybody has like their own problems, and, you know, bipolar is just one of mine. You know, it makes me feel different. I don't feel like I don't want to fit in. Like, I know I said I wanted to feel normal, but, you know, like, when I think about it, I don't want to be like a copy of everybody else. Like, because if I was normal, like, I would have no personality, you know, like, I have, like, you know, like a lot of people, some people think I'm funny because I have a weird sense of humor, but, like, there's people who think I'm funny, and there's people who think, like, I'm, like, a good kind of crazy, and, you know, I like that. I don't like being, like, boring. I want to be my own person, and I want to be different from everybody else, because there's so many people out here who are trying to fit in by acting like everybody else, and that's not like a life I want to live. I want to live my own life, and like the song says, I want to be more like me and less like you, which is some really good insight on that, because it's true. I don't feel like my bipolar defines me, because you shouldn't let your mental illnesses define you. because like that's just like you're acting like you're the victim, and you're not the victim just because you have something wrong with you. You're the complete opposite. You choose to be the victim, and it just makes me mad when people sit there and they're like, oh, like my mom is so bipolar because she like yelled at me like for when I did nothing, and like that kind of stuff makes me mad because you can't act bipolar. You either are bipolar or you're not bipolar. You can't act it. And you know, there's people who are like, oh, I think I'm bipolar, but they're not. The best way my therapist described it to me was, you know, there's people that are like, oh, I'm bipolar because like just an hour ago I was upset and now I'm happy again. And then he's like, those people are people who think they are, but real bipolars are like, one minute your soul, like you feel like your soul's on fire and you like hate everybody and like you want to burn this place down, and then a few hours later you come back up from your drop and you're like, you know, I like everybody. I wish I didn't burn that place down because I want to go back to that place. That was a cool place. And it's really accurate. It isn't hard to live with it. Sometimes it is, but not all the time. You know, like, from like having it and like going through drops and stuff, like, I don't like, this isn't something I'm proud of, but like when somebody says something mean to me, I get into a drop, and like my mad drops are like a lot worse than like any of my other drops. Like if I'm having like a happy, like, you know, I'm at my high point, you know, I'm not like ecstatically happy, but like when I have a drop, it's a very bad drop. Like I'm either really sad or really angry, so I get like really mad, and then I blow up on people, and it kind of helped me in a way because now people leave me alone, don't say anything to me about like being this or that, you know. For a while I did let people push me around and tell me like what I am and what I'm not, and like how I don't fit in and how I have no friends. And then I let that go on for like so long, and then I finally realized like that's not a life anybody should live, because you're only hurting yourself. I don't blame my dad for the bipolar because like he deals with it along with me. I don't blame my dad for my bipolar because I'm getting help, but he's not, and that's the story for another video. But you know, like I feel like bipolars, they get attached to a lot of things, and like when we get attached to things, we get attached fast, and this is all depending on like which type of bipolar you have, or the severity of your bipolar. Like for me, like I have two really close friends that I wouldn't be able to lose, and I have my dog Coda, who I would not be able to lose. And another thing about my bipolar is I'm very obsessive about things. Like I don't know how to explain it. I obsess over like little things, like time and everything. I've heard some different therapists told me like that's part of bipolar, about like obsessing over things, and I'm not sure, because I mean like he's a professional, so he's probably right, but I don't know. I don't really like talking about it to other people, but I do feel like bipolar is something that does need to be talked about, because it goes so unnoticed all the time, because people just assume that we're nuts and that we're psycho and everything like that. But you know, bipolar is just as important as depression is, or eating disorders. They're all like psychological problems, and they should be treated as such, and they shouldn't be treated as a joke. You shouldn't use bipolar as an insult. You shouldn't use it as a feeling. You should respect the fact that people have it. It is a real thing, and like, for some people it's really real, and for some people they think it's a joke and that they can suck it up. A lot of people told me to suck it up, and it's hard to, especially when you feel like you have no one sometimes, and nobody should ever feel like they have no one. Nobody should ever feel alone and sad and depressed all the time just because they feel like, of my problem, I'm not gonna have anybody, like, as a bipolar, I can honestly say that there's been times where, like, somebody has canceled a plan with me or whatever, and normally people be like, oh, that's okay, you had to cancel, I understand, but with me, I get angry and I don't want to talk to anybody, and I kind of like just log off for a while. Like, I just get so mad. I don't want people to assume that my insight on being bipolar is the only kind of, like, that's the only way that people bipolars act, because there's so many different people out there who act differently with bipolar. Like, some people can control it, and that's people can control it if they've lived a long time with it, and it's just kind of like how some people can handle, like, their depression a lot better than other people can. And when I was younger, I never knew that I was depressed, just because like I was like 8, and I never knew like what like depression really was, and like hearing it from people like, you definitely were depressed when you were younger, just because of the way your life was. And it really makes me mad when people hear about my life story and then say they're sorry, and constantly say they're sorry. I don't like people pitying me. I don't like, oh my god, I'm so sorry that your life was like that. It's nobody's fault except for a certain someone's. Like, you can't, like, I can't blame myself for it because I can't control that kind of stuff. But you can definitely choose to get help. If you choose to not get help, then that's your own fault. But if you choose to go along with your life and you make the big decision to get therapy and be put on medication. A lot of people don't get put on medication, just like me, because I was refusing it for a long time because I was like, oh, it's gonna change me. I don't want that to happen. But it doesn't change you as a person. You're still the same person. It just changes your mood, and so that way you're not like up here and then 2 minutes later you're down here because somebody said something to you. It's like one of those things like where you can choose to control it and to not control it. And the best advice that I could give to anybody dealing with any type of problem is to get help with it, instead of saying like, I can do it on my own, I can control it on my own. Because if you're living with something that you didn't know you had up until like a certain point in time, like, you obviously weren't controlling it then, but you thought you were. But like, when you're living with something, people on the outside can see the way you act. Like, people that you go to school with, or your parents, or your family, whatever, they can see the way you act. You don't see the way you act. I never saw like my mood changes, like I never noticed them, but my parents noticed them. I didn't. But like, that's when you think like about it and you're like, that could be really embarrassing, like your mom is like, you're at the mall with your mom or whatever, or your family, or not your family, like your parents, and you're like, oh, I really want that shirt, and then you're like, oh, how much is it? And you're like, oh, it's like $50. This is if you're going to like an expensive store, and they're like, oh, that's like a lot of money. We don't have that much money. And then you get all mad and you throw like a tantrum. I'm not saying that's for like people my age, but like younger kids who are dealing with it, you know, they think it's normal to act like that, but it's not, and it's something that should be helped and treated with. And another thing is people with mental disorders deserve the same amount of respect and to be treated as normal people just as anybody else should. I don't want your pity. I don't want people to say sorry to me. I don't want people saying stuff to me about being bipolar, because I don't need it. I'm working on myself. I'm helping myself by going to therapy and taking my medication and talking about it. You know, there's ways to definitely control stuff. You know, like, every teenager gets an attitude with their parents, but I feel like some people deal with it a lot worse than other people do. You know, like, you might scream at your parents like, okay, oh my god, and you get all angry and you start like yelling and you want to hit somebody, because I get like that sometimes. And then, you know, just like little things, like, you know, just asking to be left alone for like a little bit, like breathing can really help, you know, like just taking deep breaths and, you know, like just relaxing, like taking your anger out. Like, you can play a video game and just take your anger out. That's what I do sometimes. I like to read, and, you know, like, that's what I do to relax. And I breathe a lot, and, you know, I feel like there's better ways to take your anger out than punching a door, punching somebody, breaking something, because, you know, the anger is only temporary, and when you are done freaking out about anything, you're gonna like look at what you broke or who you hurt, and, you know, you're gonna want to say sorry, but they're gonna be mad at you. You know, like, if you say something to your parents that's like rude, you like make your mom cry, which is like the worst feeling in the world, and, you know, you're like, oh god, that was really wrong to do, and you just want to apologize, but you just don't know how to say sorry, because you want to seem tough. You want to seem like you're unbothered by the fact that you put somebody you love and care about in pain, because that's like, bipolars are really standoffish, and they want to seem tough and they want to seem cool, just because a lot of people treat us as if we're like, we have some type of like lower level of thinking, which some people do. Some bipolars are really impulsive. You can be impulsive and not be bipolar, and, you know, that's fine. You know, like, I make dumb decisions, and I admit that. You know, the first step to fixing anything is admitting that you can be the problem. There can be other problems, but like, you need to accept the fact that if you do something and you get in trouble for it, you are the problem, and you need to fix that problem. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that you're wrong. If anything, it shows that you're mature and that you have respect for yourself, and that you can respect yourself enough to admit that you're the problem and to fix the problem. I probably went over my time, but that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.